Welcome to I Change the Narrative, a podcast for and about Black men, inspiring, supporting, and empowering Black men and Black boys. Before we start the conversation, I want to ask our guests to briefly tell us about yourself and the work that you're involved in that lends itself to this topic or the lived experience. Welcome, gentlemen. Lamont, you can go first. Thank you.
I was wondering, I was like, oh, my picture is the closest. My name is Lamont Harrell. I'm based in Washington, D.C. I am the founder and CEO of the Black Game Makers Association, and we focus on creating a platform for Black game designers to showcase their work. We try and create the space so that we can bring in as many consumers and let them know about the things that they do. And I've also been a political consultant for the past 15 years. And I've been a Black man all my life.
Thank you. Terrell.
Hey, good to see everybody. My name is Terrell Williams, currently in the city of Pittsburgh. Though you see the Compton hat, no, I'm not from Compton. I just wear anything with any neighborhood that's historically known as a Black neighborhood. You might see me wearing something from someone from Newark or Harlem. That's just what I do. Currently, I work for the county, Allegheny County in Pittsburgh, Child, Youth, and Family Services. I'm an education liaison. My job is pretty much to make sure any child in the foster care system is being treated fairly when they go to school. From the age of 14 all the way to 24, meaning I'm the person in charge of pushing this young woman, man, toward going to college. That's the ultimate goal. Aside from that, I also have a little bit of knowledge of theology. I'm a theologian for fun. Pretty much, primarily, my job is to hold people accountable in that places when I have to.
Awesome. Thank you. Vernon.
Yes, good morning. At least it's good morning here on the West Coast. My name is Vernon Yancey. Born and raised Los Angeles, California, so I respect the Compton hat. Howard University graduate class of 2016, mechanical engineering major, HU, shout out. Oh, you already know. There we go. I'm also the founder and CEO of So Organic, So Suave. We go by the acronym SAUCE, and we produce, manufacture, and deliver self-care essentials crafted specifically for us. Natural, organic, and pure ingredients, focusing on beard care, hair care, and skin care. And now we're really branching into the entire lifestyle gambit. Anything that we can do or we can use to help make ourselves feel better and love ourselves more and feel more empowered. That's what we're going to put out. That's what we're owning within our ecosystem. So that's me. Thank you for this opportunity. This is an amazing topic. I'm excited to share this space and energy with you all.
Thank you so much, Tyler.
Yes, so my name is Tyler Archie, and I am at Howard grad as well, HU 18. And before getting out to Howard, I'm born and raised in a city called Fresno out here in California. Los Angeles based now, but I'm from a place called Fresno, and that place is known as the Mississippi of the West. So that's where a little bit of my experience and life story will come from in this conversation, being in a West Coast, Mississippi, then going to an HBCU.
Awesome. So glad to have you all on the show, and we thank you for being invested in the cause. Today's topic is dispelling the myths. Things I wish white people knew. Let me preface this first by saying, I do not expect you all. We are not expecting to seek validation from the others, okay? This is a conversation that is important to us, important to me, because I feel that Black men are misunderstood. So it's time to bring some kind of understanding and correction to some of the myths that you all have been haunted with, or myths that give you guys pain as Black men. So we're going to start off the conversation with, I guess, Lamont, you can go first. Yes. Well, whoever wants to take it, you guys can take it. Again, this is just a conversation. Feel free to jump in there, and you guys take it away. Thank you.
Wow. Well, thank you. And like Vernon said, thank you so much for inviting us here so that we can have this important type of discussion. Like first, there are so many things. When you brought the idea up, I was like, what do I lead with? You know, because there's so many. And I often find myself having these conversations. My oldest son is 16, and he goes to a boarding school in New Hampshire, and he is essentially in the minority there. And this is new coming from somebody, I don't want to say new, but new recent in terms of being a Howard graduate and knowing that experience of being around Black intellectuals from all walks of life, all around the world, and having to have him tell me his experience, and we're having those questions. So I've been wrestling with a lot of these topics recently. And one of the ones that I think is important is the idea that it is okay to love somebody's culture, another group's culture, without owning it. You know, I think that there is this strange history of acquiring other people's cultures. And I think that, you know, here in America, we're supposed to be a melting pot, you know, where all these cultures are represented. But it's usually in a way where the people who come from that culture are usually looked down upon when they're expressing it, or, you know, they're held back in life, whether that's, you know, in politics and business and education. But when, you know, our white counterparts embrace it, then, you know, not only is it cool and acceptable, but it also becomes, you know, they can monetize it, you know, and it's everything from food to music to you know, anything. But what made me think about it is I grew up in LA, and the part of LA that I grew up in, I went to school with a high population of Latino students, where I think my school was like 40% Black, 60% Latino. So I grew up around a lot of people from Mexico, Guatemala. So I grew up with Mexican food, Mexican music, and I can appreciate so much from Mexican culture and ride and be allies for my Mexican brothers and sisters, but I don't have to own it, you know, and I can recognize that. I'm a Black man, I'm a Black American, and I can own all of those things, but I don't have to own their, you know, their culture. And I think what that does is, from my perspective, it allows me to see things that are different and be accepting of it, without judging it just because I don't understand it off the break. You know, I can do Taco Tuesdays and be happy.
Right.
I really wish that white people understood that part of it, because growing up in Fresno, you know, I describe Fresno as kind of a Mississippi of the West, but it's still got a pretty diverse culture breakdown. And, you know, growing up, I had plenty of Latino friends, Mexican friends, people that, you know, came, you know, illegally, that immigrated, that didn't even have green cards. I had friends from other countries, you know, from like South Korea. And it seemed like all my friends of color, they all understood, you know, what's understood doesn't have to be spoken. They knew, you know, we participate in these other cultures, or we see bits and pieces of them, but we don't have to own it. We don't have to take it, dominate it, or gentrify it. But for some reason, I could never make heads or tails of why my white counterparts, whenever they would participate in foreign culture, there was always a feeling that they were gentrifying it, or that they were taking it, you know, for some type of selfish gain. And I could never make heads or tails of that. So I completely you know, agree with your first point. That's something strongly I wish they knew how to do, is just participate within a culture without taking it, acquiring it, trying to monetize it. You know, the way that Black fashion and Black hairstyles have been gentrified in the last couple of years, have been, really offensive. That we've had a whole fight in the professional world in the last couple of years of trying to make locks, finally legally allowed to be protected. While, we have people facing scrutiny for wearing locks, we have white counterparts going in with similar styles being praised, while we literally have Black people losing their jobs just for going into work with their hair locked up. So I really wish they knew how to just participate in culture without having to come in and acquire it and dominate it and monetize it. Just participate.
Mm-hmm. You want to know the strangest thing? You just made me think about. I don't know if you've ever lived this particular instance. I've watched white people come into my culture and utilize it when they're in the minority. Meaning high school, somewhere around 9th grade, they start listening to some Tupac, some Nas, and then we allow them to the barbecue. And then next thing you know, they're wearing their pants like me, they're wearing their hat like me, they're wearing everything like me, they're talking like me. We spend this time together, 9th to 12th grade, and somewhere around senior year of college, it just turns off. And then they start hanging with a whole different set of people. They go from, yeah, I love Black people, I'm with you, to now it's, well, you know what? Maybe affirmative action was really the worst part about Black culture. And you're like, well, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Like it's going to a situation where a lot of people, white people, have come into our culture, going to the barbecue, and then they forget about us, and they get their own barbecue, and they don't invite us.
Yeah,
I deal with that. I've witnessed it. I've witnessed white people grow up in the projects and go from being, yeah, I understand your lifestyle, yeah, I love your culture, to hey, Trump was saying some real stuff right there. You know what I mean? And it's like, what happened?
Right.
You were in the struggle with us, but not really. You wanted to be a part of the struggle for fun. You wanted to be a part of the struggle for a hobby, but you didn't really want to be part of my culture.
Yeah.
That's what I was about to, right there, what you just said, I was going to raise a flag on when you said that you were in the struggle with us. I think that's the issue. They have never been in the struggle with us. They will never be in the struggle with us, no matter if we have the same annual income, no matter if we're in the same neighborhood, in the same project, in the same $1 million home. We're never going to be on the same level ever. So, and then just thinking about how America, I'm gonna focus on America, how America even came to fruition, and how America even started, right? Mm-hmm. They came here and they stole the land, right? They came across the ocean, stole the land. They robbed the Native Americans, indigenous people of their culture. Mm-hmm. Then they came to Africa, they went to the Caribbean, and then they stole us. And then they took our culture away from us, forced us to adapt their culture, and forced us to spend, how many years has it been? Over 200, well, way over 200, 400 years.
Right.
Having to redefine ourselves and realign ourselves and find and reattach ourselves to our culture that they had worked so hard to break us away from. So just seeing their resume, right? Just looking at their resume, I can't deny that. So it's like when this happens and they pretty much now Cinco de Mayo is not a celebration of Mexican independence. It's now a half off margarita day in America. Mm-hmm. Like, that doesn't surprise me. Like, it doesn't surprise me when like the same example you just spoke to, Terrell, about when they first get that taste of Jay-Z, when someone first listens to that first Nipsey Hussle song, and it's just like, oh, I like this. But then after further experiences, they realize like, oh, something else happens. And like, wait a second, they're not, I can enjoy it. I can taste it, but that's not something that I want to actually like, I want to just enjoy for fun. I don't want to fully align myself to that. And that's when they start to break off into another narrative. I think one thing that I am very careful of myself is generalizing white people as well and using that broad term. Because I know a lot of Caucasian, European, Spanish, Jewish individuals that see the culture and respect it and purposely like make moves not to monetize off it. But the larger population, the greater population, is definitely always looking for an advantageous step advantageous gain whenever they come in contact with something that they see other people love. So I think a question that I would have if I may ask a question.
Sure. Go right ahead.
The question I may ask, and kind of like now you got me thinking throughout what you said, is like, how much of our culture do we, specifically looking at Black people, how much of our culture do we make available for white people to grab and take? And how much of it do we lock up and do we keep just for us and cherish and honor just for us?
We give it all free. That's the problem is Black folk. That's the way we've always been. We give it for free. We give the culture, the art, the essence of life. We just give it for free because it's how we live. And then when we try to monetize it, we struggle to. But if someone non-Black wants to monetize our culture, you know, they usually do, and they make a killing. And we struggle at it because everything we do culture-wise, we just do it to do, and then people take it from us.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'm sorry,
to build on that, if I could, like we do that, but I think one of the things that, like if I were to flip it and say, what are some of the things I wish that Black people knew, is that it's okay to be you. It's okay to be Black. It's okay to have a name that is not traditional in the American sense, in the white sense, or even in, you know, a typical Black sense. It's okay to be creative. It's okay for our hair to be a particular way. And I think that because we've always been, to I think Terrell's point, we've always been trying to live up to these norms of that weren't ours to begin with. We oftentimes put ourselves in these holes where, you know, we don't respect and value what we create because we look down on it ourselves. Mm-hmm. You know, I grew up making fun of people's names just like everybody else, you know, and it took me to become an adult, a parent, a Howard grad, a business owner, to realize that has nothing to do with anything. Because I've met people from all over the world that, you know, they're not Black, and their names are just as far out there as anything we would create. There's nothing wrong with the beauty of what we're able to create. I think the more that we own that, the less we would give away.
Mm.
But again, that goes back to the mindset of 400 years ago when they broke us down to want to adapt to them and want to be like them and want to idolize and shoot our goals to be like them. So when we express our creativity, when passing down identities to our children, and it doesn't look similar to what we have seen be put forth by them, then it takes us a second to realize it, and it takes us a second to embrace it and acknowledge that as our individuality and what makes us unique and what makes us special. And I understand, so I completely agree with you on the naming front as just an aspect of the overall, you know, issue.
Is there anything heavier than fighting 400 years of systematic generational programming, though, in the span of like 60 years? We're in such a strange time to be in this country. You know, if you think about the timeline, there was hundreds of years where we were chained up as a people being programmed, and it's not that long we've really been free.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't know if that was rhetorical, but I can't think of anything heavier.
Right.
It was kind of rhetorical, but just saying like that's what I think that, you know, for white people, sometimes we can come to and realize the timeline that it wasn't that long ago. You know, if we think about it, our grandmas, you know, great grandma, someone that she knew in her lifetime as a little girl was a slave. That's how, you know, close but not that far back slavery goes. And I think for a lot of white people, this is another what I wish they knew. You know, slavery is not a thing anymore. Jim Crow is not a thing anymore. It's out of sight, out of mind. But it's like, no, we had some slaves just a little over 100 years ago. They still existed in some places. Like it's not that far removed behind us. And a lot of the issues we face today are still lingering because of systematic slavery programming that, you know, is beaten into our DNA almost. And we got to go through, you know, decades of therapy and family therapy to kind of like wash out.
Right.
But what the problem is that a lot of us don't realize that systemic racism is really just an extension of everything that we've already gone through as far as slavery So while there's no whips and chains as far as physical abuse, when your mother is passing on a project building apartment to you, and then you're passing it on to your child, and when you're not able to reap the benefits of your taxes, you're just as much, you're just as held down as a slave would be. If you can't improve yourself while you're not physically being beaten, working at McDonald's only making $5 an hour and going and blowing that money on the project building owned by the government, I mean, you're
It's a type of slavery.
You're enslaved. You know what I mean?
And I think so. I'm a Virgo, so I pay very close attention to words. So when you said, Tyler, when you were like, slavery is out of sight, out of mind, immediately I was like, and then we talking about systemic racism is still in our mental set. Does that mean slavery is not out of mind? Is slavery may be, and I would even, some people would even argue, and we can get real Dr. Carr, everyone that went to Howard may or may not know Dr. Carr. We can get real Dr. Carr and be like, slavery isn't even out of sight. But it definitely, I would 100% say that slavery is not out of mind. I think one of the biggest impacts of slavery, I don't think slavery, the physical component of slavery, I don't think that's what made slavery slavery. I don't think that's what had its largest impact. It was the mental captivation. It was that mental breaking down and that mental degradation that is something that extends past your body. Like you can, the whips, the wounds from the whips, the cuts from the amputation, that stopped. That can't be transferred from person to person. I don't have my great-great-grandfather's or my great-great-grandmother's whips on my back. Physically. Mentally, though, I still have remnants of that mindset still in me. I still have remnants of that. My DNA still like I think Terrell said it. I still have beatings in my DNA. Like that is just still, I believe it's still in my subconscious. And I think, look, to me, I think that will forever get passed down through us because that's an experience that has such a large impact on our overall makeup, from the mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, our entire makeup, I feel, has been impacted by that experience that our ancestors went through. So just thinking of that mindset of slavery is definitely, and that's one thing I look at today, is like, it's still in mind and it's still being practiced. The whole project mentality, I feel like that's an aspect of slavery. Like, and then go ahead, Lamont.
If I can, like, I'm hearing you, and what I'm hearing simultaneously, because my wife and I talk about this all the time, right? You know, it's been proven that the trauma of slavery shows up in our DNA. Slavery did not just impact the descendant of enslaved Africans; it also impacted the white people who got to benefit from slavery. So just like that's something that's with us, the benefit of it and the trauma of it are things that reside within them. And I think that I mean, you can tell me I'm wrong in this, but I think we've seen that play out in these political elections, because you can't have a candidate such as President Trump and not think about how popular he is in the South, how proud people are to wave those Confederate flags, how emboldened and emblazoned these folks were to come out and riot and rally and say, we're taking this country back to where, right? They've gone to a place in their psyche, in their spirit, in their DNA, and say that's the place that we want to return to. And while we have a number of white Americans who don't feel that way, one of the things that I wish they knew is that slavery is not over in the minds of people, and there are people in this country who still feel that way. You know, when the Civil War ended, those people they weren't put in jail or anything like that. You know,
they were home.
Right, they went home, and they got money to replace their property, right? And then they went up and raised kids with the same mentality that they had, and they raised their kids with the same mentality. And now here we are, still dealing with the effects of the mind. Slavery still exists in the minds of both white people and Black people, and I think that's something that white Americans need to come to terms with.
So what's the solution as far as Black men are concerned with not getting over, but coming from out of that slavery mentality?
Well, if I could say, one situation, number one, the biggest thing that holds us back, in my opinion, it's when we're convalescent to what this modern day racism looks like. Meaning, there's a select group of Black people that'll just overlook anything that a white person does and blame the Black person first. I'll call her out, Candace Owens. You have too many Candace Owens in our lifetime. You know what I mean? There's too many people that are willing to really find an excuse for racism. There's too many people love Kanye West. There's too many people like Kanye West that are undereducated that have loud voices. So a lot of times, a lot of racism flies by. It slides by, and you don't have too many people willing to check it because a lot of people are more focused on getting money, or they're more focused on ignoring it, or they're more focused on aligning themselves with racism and trying to make a profit from it. It's a matter of somebody's got to start stepping up a little bit more. I don't know if we have enough loud voices in the struggle in 2020 that'll just flat out call it out. And you got to say something, and we don't have enough people willing to. No, let me take that back, because that's really under evaluating people. We don't have enough loud voices in high places willing to say something.
Centralized high voices.
There you go. Because even after one or two stragglers might say something, then you have somebody calling them out because they didn't call something else out. I had this conversation with a young lady in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I told her, I was like, look, I love you. Your spirit is strictly into activism. I love you, but you don't know anything about governing. So you get mad at the person that knows about governing because they're not good at being an activist. Instead of saying, yo, I'm an activist, you govern, let's work it out. So there's too many little mini pockets that are kind of breaking each other down. Then you got the person getting money saying, well, I want to focus on getting my money so I can build my own, like Black Wall Street. I don't care about the protester. I don't care about the activist. I don't care about the governing. So now you got multiple people fractured, and now you don't have any unity. So here comes no disrespect, I don't want to say all white person. Here comes the opportunist that comes in, and he finds a way to hop in with maybe the person more concerned with capitalism versus the person that's an activist. Right. And next, it's all taken down. And now we're all yelling at each other instead of unifying and confronting the issue.
Right.
Yeah. I think another possible solution. Obviously, I think as Black people, we have to take our destiny in our own hands, and like Terrell said, really step up to the plate. Politically and otherwise, business wise. But at the same time, one of the things that I wish white people knew is that it is okay to be an ally, and you can look at a situation of an oppressed culture in this country and go, I know this is wrong, and do something about it without necessarily putting yourself at risk. So for example, I identify as a male. I've identified as a male. I've been a male my entire life. So my perspective is through a male. And it wasn't until I was married and I had to have these conversations that I really recognized the fact that I have male privilege. I never thought it. I grew up a Black boy in LA, living in Compton and Watts. You know what I'm saying? Like, nowhere did I think I had privilege. But my wife had to break it down for me and said, if you and I are in a room and somebody's coming for information, they're looking for you first. Right. There are men that won't even speak to her if I'm in the room unless they've, just because they don't want to, whatever. So I had to learn about my privilege. I had to learn about her pain. And there are times where I got 5 boys. Okay, there are no girls in this house other than my wife. And she goes, the new Cinderella movie is out, and I got nobody to see it with. Nobody wants to go see it with me. And, you're right. I don't want to go see Cinderella. And, if we had a girl, maybe I would. But this is one of those moments where I go, wow, I'm not even paying attention. We're going to all these Avenger movies, all these action flicks, because, that's what the boys want to see. But what about her? She's been left out. So I've had to learn to watch for things when Black women aren't present, not present in a room, not present in media, not present in voices. I've had to learn that, and that's something I'm still working on. But this is something that anybody can be committed to. If you see something that does not sit well in your spirit, you can learn about their oppression. You can learn about the system and then learn to call it out when necessary.
I like that. Learn about your individual privilege. That's deep.
That's good.
Yeah.
That is something I feel like we all need to do, because the last few years, I feel like all the sensitivities around microaggressions and privilege has helped facilitate really good conversations, where the same way you talk and you didn't know you had male privilege. These last 2 years, that was something I was awakened to as well, and went through a whole cycle of thoughts, replaying situations, and then from there able to move different when I'm in situations with people, especially with my my women counterparts. But that becoming aware of each of our own individual privileges and having those discussions about how that plays out. I remember being at Howard and having colorism conversations at Howard, because of course we know that Black is a spectrum, and there's no monolith to being Black. We're worldwide with all types of languages, sizes, shapes, and colors. And I remember talking with some friends in some art history courses and saying, there was one particular student who was always loud and opinionated and going over her time speaking, and no one would stop her. And it just so happened that she was fair skinned. And so they tried to accuse her of a certain type of privilege that sparked one of these sorts of conversations, that there was a lot of people engaged that had no idea about that type of male privilege in a classroom, or even the male privilege that comes when a colorism talk, when it's a chocolate Black man, speaking to a fair skinned Black woman. There's all types of dynamics, but I feel like offering another solution for kind of getting out of that slavery mindset is the fact that since it isn't a physical thing anymore, it means it's all within the mind. And lately, there's been a lot of emphasis on meditations, clearing your mind, learning, expanding. And I feel like we can't depend on a Harriet savior to come and rescue the individual. People have to wake up to 2020 and 2021 that there's an abundance of material to help you. And there's community that's already tapped into the material, going through it, that knows it, that can pull you along with them. But it's a choice in the mind to pivot and turn and just go a different direction. And I say it simply only because just casually getting online now, it's just readily available if you want to go that direction. There's those communities now.
From understanding your privilege to understanding your mental health and making sure that you're clearing your mind, to me, I look at like those, when I'm hearing this, the first thing that came to my head as far as the solution for Black men is we have to understand our power. Yeah. We have to understand the power that we each possess, the voices that we each possess, and understand the impact and the reach and that we are individually able to accomplish and able to push forward, right? I don't think necessarily when I'm thinking about like, and how do we move forward? What's step one? Being able to understand your power to me is like being able to understand your privilege, understand what you have influence over, understand that if you look around your room and there is not a Black woman's voice represented, understanding that you have the power and the opportunity to speak up and bring awareness to that, to start to be more inclusive, understanding you have the power to clear your mental head and free your mind. They can try to trap your body, they can try and trap our bodies, but they have no control over the wings in our mind, over the breadth of where our mind can travel. So understand the power that we have within our grasp, and then focusing on that and then moving forward according to that. Yes. I like how I think Tyler, you may have said it, somebody else said it, correct me if I'm wrong. the looking for a Harriet, looking for someone to come and just grab us. Like, I think it's understanding like, yo, not who's gonna come save me, but how do I save myself?
Wow.
Like if we collectively start to understand the power that we do have, I think we unify and from a sense of understanding the power that we each possess. Not unifying, I'm gonna be honest, you're not gonna get every Black man to be a Democrat. You're not gonna get every Black man to like hip hop music. You're not gonna get every Black man to support every social justice issue the same exact way. It's unfortunate, but to me, that's a very utopian way of thinking. However, I feel like if we do collectively understand the power that we have as Black men, and then we have the power to speak up for what we each believe is right, I think that will start to show some unity across the spectrum, one, and two, start to present ourselves in the world and be taken way more seriously. Because now it's not just a power that we're waiting for someone else to put a valuation on us. We're not waiting for anybody else to put a value on us and tell us what our power is, what our value is. But if we know collectively, individually as well, what our power, what our value is, I think that's a great step one for a solution to start to free ourselves from this long slavery mindset.
Yeah. Instead of going out to sources, realize that we each individually are a source.
Right. Conversations like this, like what you're doing, Garnica, like this is the conversations that need to be had so we can understand. I know on this call, just hearing these different perspectives from Tyler, Terrell, and Lamont, I've been able to really start to even understand my power a step further. Like, and this is a type of energy that needs to circulate throughout the community. So we start to really build ourselves up as one.
Right. I agree with you totally. I thank you for you telling us that we need to understand our power as Black men. I first and foremost think that is one major hill that needs to be conquered for you all as Black men. Once that understanding comes about, then we can tackle all these little other issues, not little issues, but we can begin to tackle, or you all can begin to tackle some other issues in your lives as Black men. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think it's we though. I think you had it right the first time. We will begin to tackle, or we'll be able to tackle the things. Because I feel like as a Black man, we're good. We're good amongst Black men.
Right.
When you add the Black woman into the mix, that's when we become great.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely a team effort
Yeah.
to push us forward. Like I've seen it on many different fronts. So I think you had it right when you said we will then be able to come and then start to push forward and start to, progress even further.
Right.
And to that point of just a solidarity, it's a meeting of it's not just of minds. It's everything. I made it a point to try and get 4 new Black products in my home for like the new year. And one of the things that I've learned is, one, it's not as hard as I thought, but 2, it's also not as easy as I thought. And I have to consciously think about it, right? But so Black men paying attention to Black women's issues, Black women paying attention to Black men's issues, but building Black businesses, building Black banks, building and strengthening communities, building and strengthening the Black churches. Just really putting our efforts into inward is what I think we should be doing to build the type of power that I think we're talking about, which will help make change. In organizing, we say that power is either organized money or organized people. And as African Americans in this country, we've had a deficit of organized money because we hadn't been paid for labor, and we're still trying to catch up to everybody else's pay scale and break those generational wealth curses. So I think all of these things are things that we need to think about. How can we turn internally with our resources to build power?
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
That was an amazing relation that you just said, Lamont, power is either organized people or organized money. One of the things that I would ask is that scale balanced across them? Like, is one weighted the same as the other, or is there a difference? Is one weighted more than the other? Or
I think the philosophy is that they both are power. Which one is more powerful? I've got kids. There's nothing I can do. So if you hear that, sorry. In political science, they talk about hard power versus soft power. I'm sorry, buddy. Go ask your big brothers. Okay. In political science, we talk about hard power versus soft power, right? Where you look at the big stick or your military versus diplomacy. But with relation to people and money, you can look at Jeff Bezos and what he might be able to do, Rupert Murdoch, what he might be able to do. But when you look at the civil rights movement and you put, people out in the streets and how they strategically put kids on camera being attacked by police officers, and how that influenced other people, they were able to do great things with that. So I would venture to say that they're even, except that I think that with people, it takes a lot more to organize them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyone else with things they wish white people knew?
I have more because I wrote down a few of them, but one of the things I had wrote down that was one of the first things I thought about. Well, first to preface, I asked a couple of my black friends, my black male friends, about the topic to get their opinion, and I asked two friends, and the response was the same. They kind of chuckled when I asked them, and then they started thinking, "Is I can't really think of anything," and that emotional response is kind of what I wish white people knew. The fact that the way things have gone, if you ask a black man a question like that, he's not going to take it serious at first, because in this country, a black man's serious sentiments are usually not taken serious. What I wish white people knew is that black men are incredibly sensitive, that we are incredibly vulnerable and emotional, but we really don't have any spaces where we are allowed to express it, where we can get it out healthily. And we have this new term, microaggressions, to finally put on what happens to a lot of us in professional and social spaces. The little things that our white counterparts sometimes will do, thinking humorous, coming to us, speaking in Ebonics or with some street terminology, and we're bothered by it. But it's not like they did something super overtly offensive, so we have to let it slide. But it's always little ticky-tack things like that are these small repetitive hits in our self-esteem and our ego that kind of weigh us down. I wish they knew how much black men we keep together for the greater good for everybody else around us.
Yeah, I think that actually makes me think of something else, which I think is important. I wish that white people knew that there is a difference between having black people in a room to fit your diversity quota, what have you, and allowing in black voices. I'm pretty sure, especially with black professionals, anybody can recount a time where you said something and it made sense, and no one acknowledged it. No one took it to heart. And whatever your warning was, or whatever that thing was, when it comes to pass, you're sitting there going, I told you this would happen.
Right.
And, like we're more than just, somebody to sit down in a room to do this task. We also have great thinkers. We also have, great minds. We also have great ideas. We also think about situations, and the benefit is if my background is different from your background, then I'm thinking about this from a different perspective.
Right.
I may think about it in a way that you've never thought about. So I wish that white people knew that our voices are just as valuable, if not more, than our presence.
Right.
This is also something that I had a conversation with. I wish white people knew you're living a lot of lies that Black people are trying to tell you about. And let me get real specific. Your sense of history is not my sense of history. Your sense of patriotism is not my sense of patriotism. And your knowledge of religion, Christianity, is not my knowledge of Christianity. But the problem is white people are willing to look at anything factual and say it's fake news if you're telling it to them. So it's like, I don't know how to word it, but white people, you're living a lie. And every other culture in the world is trying to yell it at you, or trying to paint signs, and we're trying to tell you your view of the founding fathers and how you hold them in such mythological, almost like a godlike cult. Not what I'm going to have, because my ancestors probably mopped the floor that your ancestors stood on, as they said, all men are created equal. You know what I mean? When you try to tell me about your version of blonde Jesus versus my vision of brown-skinned Jesus, and I look at who lives in Jerusalem and who grew up in the Middle East, my Jesus wouldn't look like that. So I'm trying to tell you that you're living a lie, but you love the lie so much that I can't say anything to you.
Right.
I think that's an excellent point. And I was watching The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, where he was talking to Rachel Maddow. And the question that he had posed to her is, how is it that so many people can watch something that clearly is not true, and just take it for what it is? And I think her response, and I don't know if this is the right response, but it's the best one that I've heard so far, is it's because like, one, they're saying that I'm the only one that can give you this information. Everybody else out there is, so there's like this exclusivity factor. But I think in addition to that, it's reinforcement information. It's not challenging information. Right. So some of us have the ability to take in new ideas and challenge the old ones and make a determination as to whether or not we want to keep the old ideas, or we want to take in the new ideas, or we have some type of merged belief system, right? These are folks who want to believe the narrative. They want to believe the narrative that America is the greatest country in the world, that you can do anything and everything you want as long as you work hard, and that anybody that's not white, Anglo-Saxon, American is other, and therefore their otherness challenges my view of myself. And how do we get through that message? I don't know. I think possibly going and meeting people where they are. And I think that, that's definitely something I'll say I struggle with. I would never go and move to Kentucky to do the work that I do. I would never move to Utah to do the work that I do. Right. I don't have it in me for that kind of fight. But I think it's wanting to perpetuate the thought process, because anything different to them, feels like, I think, would uproot their entire belief system.
Now, yeah, so I think the same weapon that was used against the Black community is the same weapon, unfortunately, the white people used against themselves. And it was kind of creating a false system of beliefs to support the narrative they were trying to create. And, now getting into an age of global connectedness via internet and social media, we can quickly fact check and do worldwide history to see, oh, that event that you said went this way, it didn't actually go that way. Oh, that that leader that we've been celebrating this holiday about, they actually were terrible and they weren't a real leader. And they're coming to terms with the truth of their history the same way, you know, we're trying to get over the trauma of our history. And it's interesting watching it play out, because you can only deny the truth for so long and hide from it before it's just right face in front with you, and you can't run from it anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we're getting close to, is we're getting close to, especially with this presidency coming to an end, white people really having to come to terms with the truth of their total history, not just what they've done in brief little isolated moments, but the truth of their total history as it's never truly changed on what they do wherever they go.
Right.
Lamont, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Vernon. Lamont made me remember something. I think in psychology, they use the term system 1 and system 2 thinkers. System 1 thinkers, or that's usually your first instinct is, all right, this is what it is. System 2 thinkers mean that you have to analyze what you're doing. So you made me think about that. A lot of us, specifically racist white culture, focuses on the system 1 thinking. You made me remember that. But the second thing I wanted to talk about that you made me think of, Brother Tyler. Once upon a time, I dated a white woman before I got married to my beautiful Black woman. I dated a white woman. A lot of you are not from Pennsylvania, so you wouldn't understand what it's like in Pennsylvania. On the west side of Pennsylvania is Pittsburgh. It's diverse. There's Black people, there's Latinos, there's Native Americans, Indians, everything. On the other side is Philly. You obviously know about Philly. In between that is Mississippi, meaning Penn State is plopped right in the middle of what you would think is Mississippi in 1970s. Mm-hmm. It's bad. The white woman that I dated, she was from a hometown outside of Penn State, right in one of them little dirt fields of racist land. I met her father, and I went into his basement, and there's a big Confederate flag right in the middle of the wall.
Get out.
Yeah, get out. Yeah. And all his boys have Confederate flags. So eventually I got cool. We broke up, obviously, but eventually I got cool with the dad. And I said, yo, man, like, you're from Pennsylvania. Why do you have a Confederate flag? Well, you know, I'm a rebel. And I'm like, you know, they rebelled against the United States, right? Yeah, but I mean, I'm just a rebel. And I'm like, but that's a symbol of racism, my man. No, it's not. That's not history. History says that it's just for the rebels that left because they believed in states' rights. And I'm like, yeah, the states' right to hold slaves, my man. And no matter how many times I gave him historically accurate information so he could take that down Confederate flag down, he didn't have it in him. And the last straw for me was when I heard him talking to his friends, and he was like, yeah, man, we're about to go cooning for cans. I'm like, y'all don't even know y'all racist, my man. Like, but no matter what you say to, no matter what I said to him, he always found a way to deflect it from being racist to finding something else for the reason that he did a naturally racist act. Mm-hmm. It's like I struggle with that, where it's like after so many times of telling you, yo, you're touching fire, I'm just going to let you burn up.
There's such a fear within white people of being outed as a racist, even if it's accidental. And it's like, if it's not you being intentionally, purposely racist, it's okay. It's a learning moment where it's something you didn't know. And that's why I'm kind of showing you in this situation, don't say this or don't do this. But the way they get defensive, like the fear of white people being called racist is like the worst thing. But historically, that's usually what it is you being racist. That's why I'm trying to help you.
Of course.
Yeah, I think that, Tyler, to your point, that I think more than anything else, people want to continue the behaviors, right? Yeah. I have a symbolic and traditional attachment to this flag, and therefore I want to fly it. And if what you are telling me is true, then that means I can't fly it anymore. So yeah, and if I want to keep doing what I'm doing, then what you're saying can't be true. And you know, I make this comparison I made it earlier in terms of male privilege, right? We are in the age of Me Too. And I know a lot of brothers is like sweating, like, you know, they don't even want to advance in their careers because they're afraid, you know, some things are going to come out from the past.
Right.
The reality is the way things are going between male female relations and have been in the past were not beneficial to women. They were beneficial to men. So
Right.
you could pressure a woman, you could use your job, you could do all these different things that now we know you can't do. You know, there are people now who will continually support the behaviors of being a male predator.
Yeah.
Right. For the sake of being a man. No, this is how men are. This is an attack on men. Like, no, you got to sit down and look at what has been happening to women for centuries,
Right.
and recognize that you know, they deserve a voice and power, especially as it relates to their own bodies. It's a mindset of being attached to an idea. And not wanting to change. So to Tyler's point, yeah, people are concerned about being called a racist, but don't want to change their behaviors because they don't want the tag associated with their behaviors. They want to continue those behaviors.
Yeah. Interesting to that segue. I was talking to a friend about some older films, specifically the original Rocky, and canon to our conversation. If you go back and you watch the original Rocky, when he has his first date with Adrian, it's one of the worst things I ever watched because of now through the lens of what we know now. So some people, you can present to them new information that should help them inform their thought and change their thought and move differently. But they may, you know, want to stay stuck where they're at. When you watch Rocky and you see this scene, Rocky sexually assaults Adrian and dang near it becomes rape. But that's not the tone of the scene because it's 1975. You know, the tone of the scene is 1975. It's all cute and it's fine, but he brings her back to this room that looks like it's squalor. There's a ripped up couch. He's stabbing the wall with a knife. She tries to leave. He blocks her exit. He's telling her to sit down on the couch. And I feel like that goes with that. There will be people who watch that and they want that still, so they'll find every reason for nothing to be wrong. And then there will be people who will say, okay, yeah, that's wrong now.
Right.
And that's just the problem. The people who want to keep status quo, not wanting to change and finding any and every excuse to deny information, to deny scientists, to deny truth, to deny anything, as long as it lets them keep their status quo.
And I think also with Terrell, you know, speaking to his ex-girlfriend's father, I think it was an uncomfortable conversation. A lot of white people don't want to have these conversations.
Yeah.
So they, you know, shove it under the rug. Vernon, I know you wanted to say something.
I was one for a second. I was just listening to all the different perspectives because I love the direction that we're going. And it just had me just think like, okay, something that I feel like now just hearing like what I wish white people knew is I just wish white people knew who they were. I wish white people knew their history. I wish white people knew, you know, what's in their DNA. And then that's what I gathered from this entire conversation is because I went in here thinking like, yo, is this conversation more about, it was hard for me to conceptualize like, what do I wish white people knew? Because my whole mindset is like, I'm really focused on what Black men need to do and what we need to be, how we need to be thinking. My mind has never traveled deeply to like, okay, what do I wish white people knew? Kind of like how Tyler, the reaction he got from his homies that when he asked the question to. But now it's like after hearing the perspectives and engage this conversation, immediately I'm just like, yo, I wish white people knew who they were. Yeah. And I just know who they are, but I wish they accepted it. And instead of trying to fight it, like Terrell's ex-girlfriend, your ex-girlfriend just got famous on this call. Terrell's ex-girlfriend's father, unlike him trying to like block it all.
Right.
I wish they accepted it and been able to, you know, make the decision instead of willingly trying to ignore it and be ignorant to it. Accept it and make the decision whether or not they want to change,
Right.
or they want to be who they are, right? I just feel like I wish that they knew who they were and that they accepted it, and then from there decided they want to go right or left instead of trying to stop from going at all. I wish they just made a decision right or left.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the minds and hearts of so many Black people who are like, I think we live in this world where society is constantly trying to tell us that our experience isn't happening. It's not happening to us.
Yeah.
Just like, like there are women who are having experiences and society is telling them that those experiences are not happening. Like, just say it. If you want to be a racist, fine. Just, yeah, I am. And at least I know I'm not crazy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Just own it. But don't try and convince me otherwise when, you singing darky jokes.
Right.
Cooning for cans.
Right.
Yeah.
Playing Jay-Z songs.
Was that?
I mean, riding in your car playing Jay-Z, playing some old Pac, and then going in the crib and talking about all the colors.
Look, hey man, I can't stand when I get in the Uber that's playing some classic jazz, and I'm feeling that jazz, and as soon as I get into the Uber, they want to put it on some hip hop. Now, I like hip hop, but I like jazz too. Why you got to put it on hip hop?
Right.
I ain't gonna lie. I may be messing it up for the coaches because when they turn on the hip hop, I'd be like, "Thank you, sir. Thank you."
That's me.
I'd be like, "I appreciate that."
Hey, look, well, we can continue to claim hip hop because historically we made that for a reason. Hip hop was birthed out of these types of conversations of necessity. But I wanted to share a story that just came back to my mind that has to do with the Confederate flag and how white people don't see a lot. And to Lamont and Vernon, your points of just how I wish they knew who they were and they could with open eyes see history. When I was about 6 or 7 years old, I was walking with my brother and my cousin to go play basketball, and we're all some little mulatto biracial children, and we're walking in this East Side Fresno neighborhood that's pretty much 98% Mexican, and we pass a house that the windows are boarded up. It's looking like it's a vacant property. The grass is all dead. It's looking real decrepit, like some people are sleeping inside. And in front, pulling up real fast in a 4x4 Jeep with no doors and windows, 4 skinhead white guys, or I should say 4 white guys who had their head shaven with a big Confederate flag. I had never been formally taught anything about race by this point.
Yeah.
But the instinctual fear that I felt seeing this Jeep with no windows, this Confederate flag, and these 4 white guys with no hair in their head. No one taught me this.
Right.
But that was the scariest thing to me, my brother and my cousin, and we all immediately felt it. Immediately. Got to the park, and when we told people about the story, nobody believed us because this was in an area where that didn't make no sense. Why would 4 skinheads be on this side of town in this neighborhood? No one believed the story. But I can remember every moment of that because that was one of the first times I was face to face with something like that, but it hadn't been taught to me. I knew it. That's
one of those subconscious things that just live in our minds. Like,
and I wish white people understood what it's like for a small child to understand something like that without it being expressly taught to them.
Right.
And to know that my white counterparts, there would be no experience anywhere close near that. That they wouldn't understand having to walk through a neighborhood with that level of fear in your own neighborhood, just going to play some basketball.
Wow.
It's like that same feeling when for me, whenever I'm driving or doing anything and I see, at least in LA, that black and white, then I see them lights. The lights could be, I've had instances where the lights are they're nowhere near me. Like, not even, if I see them a mile away, my body immediately tenses up. And I'm it's like it's just, you just feel it. And it's like, I have nothing. I shouldn't have anything to be worried about, right? I know I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm completely in the right, but it's just that, just the life experiences, things that I've been taught, watching everything on the news, and just I feel like some of it is just subconscious in the DNA.
Right.
I don't care if it's a black officer, I don't care if it's a white officer, male, female, doesn't matter. If I see that car, if I see that badge, I immediately tense up. And that's something I catch myself doing it every time. And that's when I just really, that's like the only moment that I can consistently feel it. And I just be like, damn, like I'm really black. Like this is crazy. Like I'm really a black man out here when I feel that every time. Like that just starts to weigh on me.
Right.
You know, one of the things that I've started to do recently is, you know, I've got white friends on Facebook. Hi, white friends. And I know that, you know, they watch the stories and things that I post. And, you know, now you would think I was an activist, the things that I post, but there's just so much in the news. But personally, I try to share these stories, you know, as much as possible. I shared the story of the first time I was ever called a nigger by a white person. I was 4 years old. You know, I shared the first time I ever had gotten arrested, wrongfully arrested, or had cops draw their guns on me. I was 16. And like, these are experiences that I think that folks need to be clear on. Like, this is the type of stuff that we have to do. And it didn't matter how I dressed. It didn't matter how I spoke. It didn't matter where I was. I've gotten pulled over for nothing. I've been called a nigger. I had a dude call me a nigger through a window because I apparently didn't let him over. You know, like, I think we've got to share these stories because people think this is a thing of the past. You know, and Vernon, LAPD is, you know, I've had them tail me for miles, just waiting for me to make a mistake. You know, that's harassment.
Yes.
You know, and people need to be clear that these type of things occur. And I think that we're I don't want to say we're in a good place, but I think we're starting to see more of our stories in the media play out.
Right.
You know, like when they see us about the Central Park 5.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that people say is, oh, well, that happened back then. Well, we literally just had an execution of a young man who the president refused to stay his execution, who didn't even kill anybody, you know, and he was a young man. So I think the more that we share these stories, the more we put these things out there, the more we're actually holding up a mirror to mainstream and or white America.
And that is the purpose of having these conversations, even though sometimes they may get tiresome to you all. I learned on last week's show that it's important to continue to have these conversations because we don't know that these conversations that we're having today, last week, whenever we had these conversations have the power to heal those that come after us. So I hate to do this, but yes, go ahead, Vernon.
On a positive, real quick, on a light note, we talked about hip hop quick, so I got to bring it back. Last thing I would say that I wish white people knew is that they can't stop us and they won't stop us. And I love everybody that shared this space with me. I want to make sure, like, on a positive note, they're not going to stop us. And let's keep that in the forefront of our mind. Keep pushing through.
Yes. Anyone else want to say anything?
Echo that sentiment.
It's amazing, Brother Lamont. Another thing, man, I was this close to going to Howard, and my mother didn't want me to leave the city of Pittsburgh. My big sister is Howard alumni.
Okay.
I was this close to coming to Howard. This close. I had the paperwork in and everything.
Hey, man, there's still time. We got graduate schools.
I'm about to finish up my grads in like a month or two. So
I'm gonna send you some transfer papers, and we'll see.
You gotta join the Bison family.
Yeah,
I will to. I blame y'all.
He does. Gentlemen, thank you so much. That is our time. Can you please let listeners know how they can connect with you if they want to connect with you? We can start with Lamont again.
Cool beans. Well, you can check out my website, buyblack.games. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach me on either social media, Black Game Makers, or you can email me at info@buyblack.games.
I don't have anything to plug right now, but if you want to interact with me, I'm a little crazier on Twitter, but forgive me. You can catch me at TERRELREYLEON. That's El Terrell Ray Leon for Lion King.
Right.
Okay.
Vernon.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at v.g.yancey. You can also check out Sauce. Again, self-care essentials for us, SOSSD.co. And that's our Instagram handle as well as our website. So definitely you're looking for some stocking stuffers. We got all your natural body care, hair care, beard care that you need.
So I came up with all my social media handles before I realized it needed to be streamlined because I'm a creative that way. But I'm a filmmaker and a musician, and you can find me on my Instagram, Malachi the Miracle Child, and you can use the same name to find me on any streaming platform for my music. But that's Malachi, MALACHI, Miracle Child, and yeah.
Well, gentlemen, we thank you so much for contributing your thoughts and ideas and for doing your part in changing the narrative. And lastly, for keeping your commitment by being part of the show. That means an awful lot. If you've enjoyed the show, please let us know. We would love to shout you out and post your comments. If you or someone you know is changing the narrative, please contact us at iChangeTheNarrative@gmail.com. We would love to share your story. Meet us here next Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And thank you all for listening.